Welcome to Myth or Reality Stories. Is this story a myth and untrue, or a reality and totally true? You decide.
Join me as I dive deep into the chilling crimes and disturbing past of Richard Ramirez and see if I can uncover the hidden truths behind the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, is one of the most infamous serial killers in American criminal history. His brutal and seemingly random murders sent shockwaves throughout the country, leaving a trail of fear and devastation in his wake. But what made Ramirez tick? What drove him to commit such heinous crimes, and what can we learn from his twisted psyche? Ramirez's crimes were a perfect storm of brutality, opportunism, and sheer terror. He preyed on the vulnerable, exploiting the fears of an entire city and its people. For a period of time, it seemed as though no one was safe, and that Ramirez was always one step ahead of the law. But as we delve deeper into his story, we'll see that Ramirez's reign of terror was not just a product of his own twisted desires, but also a symptom of a broader societal problem. In many ways, Ramirez's crimes were a reflection of the darker aspects of human nature. They highlighted the frailty of our social fabric and the ease with which it can be torn apart by fear and mistrust. But they also raised important questions about the role of the media in criminal cases, and the ways in which they can both aid and hinder the pursuit of justice. Ramirez's notoriety extends far beyond the confines of his own crimes and has become a cultural touchstone for discussions around crime and punishment. He represents a darker aspect of the American dream, one in which success is measured by notoriety rather than achievement. But as we'll see, Ramirez's own story is far more complex and nuanced than any simplistic moral tale. Growing up in El Paso, Texas, Ramirez was the youngest of 7 children to a Mexican-American family. His father, Julian, was a decorated war veteran who struggled with anger issues and a penchant for violence. This volatile household environment had a profound impact on Ramirez, shaping his worldview and influencing his later behavior. His mother, meanwhile, was a devout Catholic who struggled to provide stability and comfort to her family. Ramirez's early life was marked by a series of petty crimes and misdemeanors, from burglary to drug use. He dropped out of high school and began to drift, working menial jobs and living on the fringes of society. It was during this period that he became increasingly fascinated with Satanism and the occult, eventually embracing these beliefs as a way to reject mainstream values and norms. As Ramirez's criminal behavior escalated, so too did his fascination with the darker aspects of human nature. He began to collect newspaper clippings of violent crimes and to develop a twisted sense of empathy with the perpetrators. This voyeuristic obsession with violence would eventually become a hallmark of his own crimes as he sought to create a spectacle of terror and fear. In the spring of 1984, Ramirez embarked on a killing spree that would leave 14 people dead and countless others traumatized. His methods were brutal and seemingly random, involving break-ins, home invasions, and random shootings. He targeted the vulnerable and the elderly, often leaving behind a satanic symbol at the scene of the crime. As the bodies began to pile up, panic set in, and the people of California were gripped by fear. The media frenzy surrounding Ramirez's crimes was unlike anything seen before. Newspapers and television stations were filled with graphic descriptions of his atrocities, and the public's appetite for information seemed insatiable. This created a sense of hysteria, as people began to wonder if they would be next on Ramirez's list. The police, meanwhile, were under intense pressure to catch the killer and restore order to the community. As Ramirez continued to evade capture, his legend grew. He became a boogeyman figure, a monster lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. The public's fascination with him was both repelled and attracted, as people struggled to understand what drove him to commit such heinous crimes. Despite the intense media scrutiny, Ramirez remained one step ahead of the law. He was a master of disguise, using wigs, hats, and sunglasses to evade detection. He was also incredibly cunning, often leaving behind false clues and red herrings to throw the police off his trail. However, in August 1985, Ramirez's luck finally ran out. He was spotted by a group of eyewitnesses in Mission Viejo, California, and subsequently arrested. The trial that followed was a media sensation, with Ramirez using the courtroom as a platform to proclaim his innocence and his devotion to Satan. Ramirez's trial was a complex and controversial affair, with many questioning the validity of the evidence presented against him. Despite this, he was eventually convicted of 13 murders and sentenced to death. As he sat in his prison cell, waiting for his sentence to be carried out, Ramirez remained defiant, refusing to show any remorse for his crimes. In the years following his conviction, Ramirez became something of a celebrity, attracting a devoted following of fans and groupies. He was often visited in prison by young women who would bring him gifts and letters. This twisted fascination with Ramirez's crimes has been dubbed serial killer chic and has sparked a wider debate about the nature of celebrity and morality. Ramirez's crimes also had a profound impact on the victims' families, many of whom were left to pick up the pieces and rebuild their lives. For them, the trial and conviction of Ramirez brought a measure of closure, but also raised difficult questions about justice and punishment. In the end, Ramirez's story is one of tragedy and loss, of lives cut short and families torn apart. It is also a cautionary tale about the dangers of glamorizing violence and the importance of seeking justice rather than revenge. Richard Ramirez may be gone, but his legacy lives on, a dark reminder of the horrors that lurk in the shadows of our society. As we reflect on his twisted life and crimes, we are forced to confront our own fears and biases, and to ask difficult questions about the nature of humanity. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about Richard Ramirez and other infamous criminals, be sure to check out our other videos. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime content.
This story is a reality and totally true. Please subscribe, or else.